The Doomslayer's only purpose in life is to decimate demons, so as long as he's allowed to continue his crusade against the hordes of hell, why should it matter that he's put on a leash? It's not like he's some morally conflicted character with hopes and dreams, he's a symbol of destruction and death. And it's precisely because he's a symbol of fear that it not only matters who's pulling the trigger, but who's aiming the gun. The Slayer, despite his insatiable desire to slaughter demons, is not seen as a hero per se by humanity or the Sentinels. He's more treated like a natural disaster or primal force, whose interests just so happen to align with theirs. He's not going to take orders from humans, and he's certainly not going to make a point of saving anyone. At least, that's what I thought until the Dark Ages and the introduction of the tether. The pivotal moment when the Slayer breaks the subjugation of the Makers comes at a peculiar moment, when he's looking at a screen of demons encroaching on Sentinel land. In his head, he can hear the screams of the innocents being slaughtered, and that's what provides the motivation for him to break free of the Maker's control and become a free agent. This strikes me as strange, as the Slayer had never shown any interest in protecting the innocent, only the butchering of the damned. But for his desire to protect others to be so strong as to break the divine technology of the Makers, then he must certainly feel a kinship with the Sentinels. This represents a massive change in character from 2016 and Eternal, where he seems indifferent to mortals and largely ignores their presence as he continues to rip and tear, which might speak to a later disillusionment by the Slayer that sees him be betrayed or abandoned by the Sentinels, and he learns to rely on only himself. But for this more empathetic Slayer, the tether takes on a far more disturbing meaning, as this earlier version of the character is yet to completely kill his humanity. This Slayer has autonomy and things he cares about, such as his pet dragon, and makes a genuine effort to save Thera when she's taken by the forces of hell. This goes to show that the Slayer's priorities are extremely different to his desires in the earlier titles, as he's invested in the central plot of the game rather than being an agent of chaos. In 2016 and Eternal, there are central narratives going on surrounding Samuel Hayden and the Khan Maker, but the Slayer largely ignores them, going out of his way to shut Samuel up when he tries to explain the situation. In these games, his only interest is in the glorious killing of the unholy, and the game takes an almost comedic tone as he constantly ignores the pleas and threats of Hayden and the Khan. But here in the Dark Ages, he seems interested in following the orders of the Night Sentinels and strategizing alongside them in a tactical way to prevent hell from overwhelming them. And the brilliance of this shift in perspective is its ingenious reflection in the gameplay, where the Eternal Doomslayer was the sword that cut down the armies of hell with the Crucible, the Dark Ages Doomslayer is the shield that defends Argenta and its people from the demonic forces that seek its destruction. So this iteration of the Slayer isn't a rampaging bull that needs to be pointed in a direction to wipe out any opposing forces, but an Aegis that's essential for the protection of innocent and mortal lives. And that's why the tether is so important, because it's not a device that ensures the Sentinels' victory, but their survival. Both the Makers and the Sentinels view the Slayer as a weapon, whose mind has been so warped that the only benefit he has to either of them is as an unstoppable force to unleash. But by him being held on a tether by the Makers, it makes him a bargaining chip that's used to negotiate the lives of citizens. The Makers have no interest in the survival of the Sentinels, they've only allied themselves for access to Argent energy, and that only requires the survival of a few Sentinels to produce. They have no interest in defeating Hell, and are more than willing to sacrifice lives. However, this raises an interesting point. We know that the Makers don't care about the Sentinel's survival, but then why does the Slayer? After all, he's a heavily augmented human trapped on an alien world. If his desire to protect innocence is so strong it defies the holy technology of the Makers, where does this desire come from? For a character that's always been fueled by rage, the heroism he displays is unprecedented. But that's because while he's motivated by rage, it's not directionless rage, at least not yet. The Slayer's hatred is directed at demons, but it's only in the 2 games preceding this where his disdain extends to everyone. The Sentinels are the ones who found him after he was cast to this world and built him back up in the arena before the Makers enslaved him. It's that betrayal of trust by the Makers and witnessing the destruction of Argenta, which will likely happen in the DLC, that the full cynicism of the Slayer takes over, becoming an aloof force of nature that's no longer invested in protecting people, but killing his enemies by any means necessary. He's not yet an irrational beast focused exclusively on the culling, but a tactical and empathetic mind who wants to save the people who saved him. For more Doom essays, here's one comparing the gameplay of old Doom and modern Doom, and I'll be back in 2 days.